Okay, next up is the organization of the Board of Education, Mr. Alexander.
Okay, so in the month of January every year after elections are done, there is a reorganization of the board. So the first action item in reorganizing the board is the oath of office. So we'll go down to the front and have Doris and Eric, along with Charles and BJ, join us, and we'll recite the oath of office. Okay. So, if you raise your right hand and then repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Doris Martin,
Do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Nebraska
and the Constitution of the State of Nebraska
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, both foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same,
that I take this obligation freely and without mental reservation
that I take this obligation freely and without mental reservation
or for the purpose of evasion,
or for the purpose of evasion,
and that I will faithfully and impartially perform
and that I will faithfully and impartially perform
the duties of the office of the School Board of School District Number 15 of Beatrice, Nebraska,
The duties of the
office of the School Board of School District Number 15 of Beatrice, Nebraska,
according to law and to the best of my ability.
according to law and to the best of my ability.
And I do further swear
And I do further swear
that I do not advocate, nor am I a member
that I do not advocate nor am I a member
of any political party or organization
of any political party or organization
that advocates the overthrow of the government of the United States
that advocates the overthrow of the United States
or of this state by force or violence,
or of this state by force or violence,
and that during such time as I am in this position,
and that during such time as I am in this position,
I will not advocate nor become a member
I will not advocate nor become a member
of any political party or organization
of any political party or organization
that advocates the overthrow of the government of the United States
that advocates the overthrow of the government of the United States
or this state by force or violence,
or this state by force or violence,
so help me God.
so help me God.
All right, welcome aboard, and we'll need you to sign those down below. You can do that up
All right, welcome Brandon and Charles. Next up is the election of officers. At this point, I will turn it over to Mr. Alexander.
So the next reorganization process is the election of officers, and typically how that happens is there's nomination for a president and a ballot that's cast. So at this point, I would open up nominations for a president of the Board of Education to serve for the 22-23 school year.
I nominate Eric Trustee to serve as president of the board during that term.
I have a nomination for Eric Trustee to serve as president for the Board of Education during the term of the 22-23 school year. Any other nominations? Hearing none, do I have a motion to that nomination cease and a unanimous ballot be cast for Eric Trustee?
Need a second first.
I do need a second, thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second for Eric Trusty. So hearing a first and a second for Eric Trusty to serve as president for the 22-23 term, do I have a motion for a unanimous ballot to be cast?
I move that a unanimous ballot be cast for Eric Trustee.
I have a motion that a unanimous ballot be cast. Can I see your votes, please?
Wait a second.
Do I need a second? Sorry.
Second.
I have a second as well. Can I see your votes, please? 6 votes and 1 abstention. Eric. And I gladly turn it over to you, Mr. President. Congratulations.
Thank you. All right, next up is Vice President. Do I have a nomination for Vice President?
I nominate Doris Martin.
Okay, we have a nomination. Are there any other nominations for Vice President? See none. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Charles. We have a motion and a second for Doris for Vice President. Do we have a motion to approve the, I can't remember how you
I
do
move
unanimous
for
ballot.
additional nominations.
I already did. Oh, are there any additional nominations? Okay, see
I
none.
move that nominations cease and a unanimous ballot be cast for Doris Martin.
Thank you, Janet. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Eric. All right, can I have your votes, please? And motion passes 7-0, so Doris will be our Vice President. All right, next up, Secretary. Do I have a motion or a nomination for Secretary?
I nominate Dr. Jackie Nielsen.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a second on that nomination?
Second.
Second by Doris. Do we have any other nominations for Secretary? All right, seeing none.
I move that nominations cease and a unanimous ballot be cast for Dr. Jackie Nielsen.
Okay, thank you, Janet. Do I have a second on that motion?
Second.
Second by Eric. Can I have your votes, please? Motion passes 7-0. All right, Dr. Nielsen is our secretary. Next up is treasurer. Do I have a nomination for treasurer?
I nominate Mr. Alexander to serve as treasurer.
Okay, thank you, Doris. We have a second.
Second.
Second by Eric. Are there any further nominations for treasurer? Okay,
I move that nominations cease and a unanimous ballot be cast for Mr. Jason Alexander.
all right, thank you, Janet. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Eric. Can I have your votes, please? All right, motion passes 7-0. All right, so recapping, Vice President's Doris Martin, myself as President, and Secretary is Dr. Nielsen, and Treasurer is Mr. Alexander. Okay, next up is the committee appointments, sorry. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, three main committees for school and community staff relations. The committee members that I've spoke to and talked about is, the first one would be Chair Janet Byers, second would be Charles, and then third member would be myself on that committee. The next one is Americanism Committee. The chair would be Lisa. Second member would be Brandon, and then third member would be Eric Book. And then we've got the 2024-25 Negotiations Committee, which would be chaired by Janet. And then the other members would be Doris and Eric Book. And then the NASB Legislative Delegate would be myself. And then the Government Relations Network Representative would be Doris. Could I have a motion to accept the committee appointment slate as stated?
I move that the committee assignments be adopted as stated.
Okay, thank you, Doris. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Eric. Any questions, comments, discussion around the committee assignments? Seeing none, can I have your votes, please? All right, motion passes 7-0. All right, now we will move on to the consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
I move that the Board of Education of District 15 approve the consent agenda as presented, including approval of minutes of the regular Board of Education meeting on December 12th, 2022, approval of minutes of the Special Board of Education meeting on December 21st, 2022, approval of the proposed accounts for payment, approval of budgetary receipts and expenditures for December 2022, approval of option students.
Okay, thank you, Doris. Jason, do you have the treasurer's report?
I do. Expenses for the month, payroll was $1,700,663. Bills, $900,448, which brought our total expenses to $2,651,111. And our revenue for the month was $1,812,021. So, in looking at where we're at, we're 4 months through the budget cycle, or one-fourth of the way through. So, and we're just about right on track for expenditures and revenues to what we predicted for the year. So, we're in good shape as we get 1/4 of the way through the budget cycle.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a second for the motion for the consent agenda?
Second.
Second by Janet. Any other questions, comments, discussion? All right, seeing none, can I have your votes, please? And that motion passes. Moving on to outstanding recognition, Employee of the Month, Dr. Nielsen.
I'm gonna turn it over to Mr. Jansen. He has
Mr. Jansen.
everything.
I
and-
do. And I'm gonna have Mrs. Milburn come up and join me. Mrs. Milburn is the one who actually nominated Mrs. J.C. Bohr, who thinks she's here for safety and security. So Jason, can you please come up and join us? And if you would like to, you could turn around real quick. And there you go. So we had a little bit of a surprise trying to get her here. So I'm gonna let Miss Milburn start us off, and then I'll kind of finish it up.
Yeah, I just nominated JC. She's been here a year and a half, and as a first-year teacher last year, amazing to work with, has had a lot of special education students.
Need to come in front of the microphone.
Sorry. Has had numerous special education students in her classroom last year and this year. Works well with them, gets to know them, and when she comes to the meetings, which is another like an aspect of your job when you have resource students in your room, is extra meetings. Always comes prepared, is active participant, and really knows the student and can share data and their strengths. So it's just been great to work with you.
Thank you.
As you can see, Miss
Yeah.
Milburn shows a lot of emotion for Miss J.C. because she does excellent. I'm just going to read a little bit about what Mrs. Milburn committed or sent to me, and then go forward. I've worked with J.C. in the last year and a half as a new teacher. J.C. is outstanding. She goes above and beyond for all students, but especially for those with higher needs. I have several resource students in her room. This requires extra meetings after contract time, and J.C. is always willing to be there to share and be an active participant in all of the IEP meetings that deal with her students and others. J.C. forms relationships with students in her classroom and really knows where they are academically and what their strengths are. J.C. balances being a coach and a teacher as well. She is open to new ideas, has a positive mindset, and is always trying to find what works best for students. I put in there, J.C. is an asset to Beatrice Public Schools. She has stepped up and taken the lead role of school and safety, which made her step outside of her box, which involves monthly meetings with myself as well as her team, in addition to presenting at staff meetings. She has taken this role very seriously and has come up with some great suggestions for improving our school safety. JC is so friendly and makes outstanding student-teacher relationships as well as parent relationships. She is a team player at her grade level as well as throughout the school. JC advocates for all students, no matter where they are in her classroom or within the grade level. I would like to congratulate Miss J.C. Bohr, January's Employee of the Month. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
And they're going to want a picture with you and Mrs. Miller.
Oh, Mr. Johnson.
It's about them. Yes, it's about them.
And I'm gonna grab a picture real quick here, and you know why.
He'll have it on his Friday email.
Okay, thank you. Congratulations.
All right, congratulations, JC. Next up, we will move to the information portion of the agenda, and we will start with board reports, stance report. Mr. Alexander.
Yeah, so just a brief stance report this evening. We had our first stance Zoom check-in meeting of Thursday of last week. And basically, we just reviewed the first day of the legislative session and discussed the election of committee chairs and the appointments of committee members that were made on the first day of the session. So not a lot to update as of yet. We do have Colby Coash Johnson, NASB legislative liaison, scheduled to come to our February board meeting on February 13th to give a little bit of an update of what's happening in the legislature. So as soon as we have some more bills in the mix and some updates to make, he's going to come and said he would come down on February 13th to do that.
Perfect, thank you. Negotiations committee, Janet?
We have not met since the last meeting because we were waiting for additional information to come in. Some of that has come in, so I have reached out to BEA to schedule another meeting sometime this week.
Okay, thank you, Janet. Now's the time for public forum comment. I don't believe Dr. Nilsson received any comment cards, okay? So we'll move on to the action portion. The first is approval of legal counsel. Do I have a motion?
I move that the Board of Education of District 15 designate Perry Law Firm or KSB School Law to be representatives of the Board of Education.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Janet. Anything to add to that, Mr. Alexander?
Just basically, as you know, we do use both major school attorneys in the state of Nebraska, Perry Law Firm or KSB School Law, depending on the situation that we are dealing with, or whatever the case may be that we need advice from. So that's why the recommendation is as such to use both.
Okay, thank you. Any comment, discussion around that from the board? Okay. Seeing none, I'll take your votes. Motion passes 7-0. Next up is approval of Jason Alexander as the district's federal grant representative and financial representative. Do I have a motion?
I move the Board of Education of District 15 approve Jason Alexander as the district's federal grant representative and financial representative.
Okay, thank you, Doris. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Janet. Anything to add to that, Jason?
Nope, just a formality.
Okay. Any discussion from the board? All right, can I see your votes, please? Motion passes 7-0. Next is approval of the depository banks for Beatrice Public Schools be named as Pinnacle Bank, Security First Bank, First National Bank of Omaha, Beatrice Branch, and Bank of the West. Do I have a motion?
I move the Board of Education of District 15 name the following as the depository banks for Beatrice Public Schools: Pinnacle Bank, Security First Bank, First National Bank of Omaha, Beatrice Branch, and Bank of the West.
Okay, thank you, Doris. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Brandon. Any comments, Mr. Alexander?
Just currently, these are all the banks of depository that we have funds in locally or other places. And so at times we may go out. We've been talking about certificates of deposit, and do we want to go out and competitively seek a certificate of deposit from a different loaning institution or lending institution. And so that it could happen that we go out to see what kind of rates we could get from different institutions. If that happens at that time, and maybe it's a different one that's on here, then you will have to add them as a depository at that time, but that would be a separate motion at that time. But in other words, this is the slate of banking institutions that we currently work with.
Okay, thank you. Any comments from the board? All right, seeing none, we'll have your votes. All right, motion passes 6-0 with one abstaining, which is Lisa. Next up is designate the Beatrice Daily Sun as official newspaper of record. Do I have a motion?
I move that the Board of Education of District 15 designate the Beatrice Daily Sun as the official newspaper of record.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Eric. Thank you. Any comments from the board, discussion? All right, seeing none, can I have your votes, please? Motion passes 7-0. Next up, approval of current board policies and regulations. First is policy 8130. Do I have a motion?
I move that the Board of Education of District 15 approve the current board policies and regulations.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Eric. Mr. Alexander, do you have any comment around this?
This is just for the understanding of all the new board members and existing board members that the policies that are in place are the policies that we operate by at the start of the year in the reorganization. So it's pretty much kind of a formality, but it's necessary in order for governance to move forward.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion from the board? All right, seeing none, can I have your votes, please? And motion passes 7-0. Next up is reaffirm safe return plan. Do I have a motion?
I move that the Board of Education of District 15 reaffirm the safe return plan as presented.
Okay, thank you, Doris. Do I have a second?
Second.
I'll give that to Janet. Janet, second. Dr. Nielsen.
Okay, really quickly, at this point in time, the board will need to reaffirm the Safe Return to Learn plan. And why we do this is because we still have ESSER funding that we are currently using. And until the ESSER funding is used up, we have to, every 6 months, we have to reaffirm this plan. At this point in time, we have not had to utilize any of the guidance because our number of COVID cases have remained pretty low, pretty minimal. Any questions?
Do we by chance have a percentage of other sicknesses? Do you know, like?
Flu was pretty high in
Close to 10%?
November, December. No, it was not close to 10%. No. And we were watching because we had a parochial school in the city who ended up closing, so we were watching our numbers too. They were pretty high, but we never got to the 10%.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions for Dr. Nielsen? All right. Thank you. Can I have your votes, please? Motion passes 7-0. Next up, discuss, consider, and take action on the proposed classified staff salary incentive. Do I have a motion?
I move that the Board of Education of District 15 table item 8.7 until the Committee of the Whole meeting on February 2nd, when all new and existing board members can hear the information prior to a regular meeting.
Okay, thank you, Doris. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Lisa. Any other questions, comments around this? Seeing none, can I have your votes, please? Okay, motion is tabled until February 2nd. Approved. All right, next up, administrator's report. We will start with the middle school PBIS. Mr. Hankey, Mr. Stingle.
All right, good evening. You've got a couple documents that I put in front of you. Those will be the documents I'll refer to tonight. So this is, what I'm going to talk to you about tonight is something that ties into our strategic plan that we adopted last year. So strategy 4, if you remember that, which is we'll provide research-based instructional strategies to students' unique learning needs. The action plan was number 2, so develop and implement plans to maximize data-driven instruction to meet the diverse academic needs of all students. So normally I like to go kind of off cuff. Tonight I'm going to read this. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. I know several of you, 3 at least up there, have students at the middle school, so you might be familiar with this concept and this conversation. So this might actually fill in some cracks, questions you may have as a parent. But so in the last committee of the whole meeting, I discussed the concept in a database called the Power of ICU. At the time, it was an idea that we were still working through logistics. As I sit here today, we're now 3 days into implementation, and the initial feedback I've received from parents, teachers, and students is overwhelmingly positive. The power of ICU discussions began when our BMS staff sat in a meeting last spring. We're facing some of those post-COVID hurdles, chronic absenteeism, lower than anticipated achievement scores due to absences, student apathy. Our staff overwhelmingly decided on that day our role in education is too important to continue some of that stagnation, that trend. So after a discussion with conference administrators, we were informed of this Power of ICU system that we've now implemented. So last summer, Mr. Stengel and I went to the Power of ICU conference. This fall, our staff went through a book study, and then we brought in the founder of Power of ICU. His name is Danny Hill, into the middle school to work with our BPS teachers. Our high school actually joined in with us during that presentation too. So the Power of ICU is an academic system created by a school in Tennessee that uses a formula of completion plus quality assignments plus healthy grading equals student success. As a staff, we determine what that means at BMS. What is a quality assignment, what is not? What is healthy grading practices, what are not? What are we gonna do when students don't complete an assignment? All of these are simple questions, but they're foundational in creating a system where our teachers are on the same page, working in the same direction for student success. So onto the database, which are the two kind of the handouts you have in front of you, and that's kind of the fun part of the conversation. So the one that's stapled is a snapshot of what the database looks like. So if you look, all of our missing assignments are in real time. So if you flip the page there, you can see some of the bar graphs of what is completed, what is not. And this is actually right before I came in. There's some names that are whited out for privacy reasons. But so it breaks it down by grade level, breaks it down by how many. You can look at the bottom and see the houses that our students are in, which house has the most outstanding assignments. We have our special education groups that are within there, choir, delegation, we have our sports. So we can really look at those small subgroups of students and really focus on them. Before we get to, a lot of schools use, and we currently do, and we used to rely on our eligibility list. So also referred to as Downs list, who has 2 or more Fs that are ineligible to participate and so forth. So this allows us to be more proactive in that, where we're not waiting for a student to have 2 Fs. We can catch them when they're starting to slip, and we can be more preventative with that. So back to my script, I went off. I told you I like going off cuff, but I talk too much doing that way. So upon a teacher will put in a missing assignment into the database, and once they click go or submit, a text and email goes out to parents, and it'll state that they have an assignment that's outstanding. Some of you may or may not have got them. It states for your information that students are on the BMS academic ICU list for missing assignments in so-and-so's class. We have plenty of opportunities for intervention to get those assignments back. When they're on the list, we use we've reprioritized 3 staff members within the middle school to be called lifeguards. So our lifeguards are actually in the 6th grade, Mr. Thompson, 7th grade, Mrs. Muir, which is a newly hired classified paraphysician in our ALC room, in 8th grade, Mrs. Dipbrenner. And for one of the periods a day, sometimes it's less time, sometimes it's 10 minutes, but they'll go around to different classrooms of students that are on the list and check in with them. I see you're on the list, what's your plan of getting that completed, get off the list, so forth. Students are required to give us what their plan is on getting the assignment on that, off the list, and then we'll check in with them tomorrow. So the guy that created this system really went through some foundational pieces of the practice, and he uses an analogy that still sticks with me, and he said, when cars are created, they first didn't have seat belts. That was before me, and when they created seat belts, you went and got them installed. People just cut them off or not use them. It wasn't the seat belt that it's kept people safe. It was the eventual beeping that you keep hearing that's annoying you enough to put the seat belt on. So there's no different in this concept. And so we're going into the middle school talking with kids about, hey, you're on the list. And a couple of things that we've noticed right away, just in day 3, was kids I know, Mr. Stengel, Mrs. Dipbrenner already told me, here's my plan for it. And they're getting to a point where their habits are changing. So and another comment was this morning was simply, I just don't want to do that. Well, that's not an option right now. And so, we're starting to see some of those habits, and the purpose of that, we had to go with our teachers, was really defining what is quality assignments. If it's quality, we want it back so we can assess if students are learning. If they're learning, then our scores are going to go up and so forth. So we're in day 3. It's been a lot of great feedback, some questions on parents' end of what's ICU, why is my student on ICU, and we had to, and we'll still field those of make sure their kid's health is fine, their grade is sick though, and so that's where the ICU comes from. So I just wanted you guys to be aware of, this is something that we have implemented at the middle school. Hopefully we'll see some good traction with that and see some good success with our students. If you have questions, I'd be glad to entertain those.
If a student, can a teacher give an assignment and then and the student doesn't complete it, and then they're never notified, can that assignment count in their final grade?
So say that again?
The teacher gives an assignment.
Yep.
But maybe for whatever reason, they don't think it's a quality assignment, but they still want to give it. Will that impact the student's final grade?
So at this point, teachers can still give whatever assignments they want out there. The difference with this is it's not the grade book, and so and this is something we had to work with our teachers too. And that was a big part of we can get into the weeds now, but the purpose of this was grades don't motivate all students. Grades can motivate some of your high achieving students but grades don't motivate all students. So this is really a purpose to look at, what am I assigning, what is quality? If it's quality, we're gonna get it back, even if it's graded or not. So within the assignments that come through, I see them, colleagues see them, we can kind of weed out what is quality, what is not. So the goal with this, if they're put into ICU, that they're gonna get off that list soon and get that assignment in. There's a chance that they'll hang out, and if we get to the end of a assessment and we have to zero out assignment, we still may. But most assignments I should say, all assignments that go in there should be quality. There's gonna be some that sneak through, but I don't know if I'm following your question.
No, I give an assignment.
Yep.
Or the teacher gives the assignment, but it's never put into this database. Can that still impact their final grade?
Gotcha. So if a student or if a teacher doesn't use the database for missing assignment, I actually had that same question brought up today. Thank you for rewording it. So it still can be out there. That is something that in my role is I just have to monitor that. So I can see as far as staff logins, who is accessing it, how many times, how often, and so forth. So that's just kind of the fidelity piece that I've got to bring to the table, that we're all using that. So that is a good question. Yes, could that happen, that an assignment goes in the grade book that didn't make it on here? Sure. Should it? No. Yep.
Any other questions for Mr. Hankey?
Just say I'm really thankful that I appreciate the work that you're doing on this. Sounds
Absolutely.
good.
Yep. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Andrew. Next up, Superintendent Report, Mr. Alexander.
So just a few brief updates for you. If you recall, right before the holiday break, we saw we had a special board meeting to approve the gross maximum price of the building, and then following that, the SNEA had a meeting, and just wanted to update you that they did also approve the gross maximum price. So all that paperwork now has been signed by both Houseman Construction and all the entities that need to make approval and sign that. So that's all done, and we continue to move forward, which leads me to the next update, and that is the building project update. So the footings for one portion of the building, if you've driven by out there, have been poured. Those footings now we'll start to see some actual masonry go up, and if you've been by there, you've seen the scaffolding and the bricks and things like that. So that's in the process. CMU work, concrete, masonry, and utilities is all planned for the coming weeks. as long as weather stays like it has been the last few days, so that's good news. And then the plumbing will follow that. So the weather did create a few days where we didn't get a lot of work done, so we are tracking those days, so we make sure that we try and stay on schedule as much as possible moving forward. Those are just a couple of updates around that. The last update I have for you is just a reminder, as board members, if you have a potential conflict of interest, you do have a sheet at your table tonight. If you get through this, you get home and you're not sure and you need to ask, don't hesitate to call, and we can work through that together if you are not sure if you have a potential conflict of interest or not. But if you do and you know you do and you get these filled out, we'll take those back whenever you get to them. And other than that, we did ask to move the committee of the whole meeting from Thursday, January 26th to Thursday, February 2nd, just due to a scheduling conflict that we ran into, and just make note of that on your calendars if you would, please. And I think that's it.
Okay, thank you, Jason. Notification of next meeting. The next regular meeting of the Board of Education will be February 13th, 2023 at 7 p.m. in the Administration Building. The Committee of the Whole meeting will be February 2nd, 2023 at 6 p.m. in the Administration Building. An agenda for the meeting, which shall be kept continually current, is readily available for public inspection at the Superintendent's office during normal business hours. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I move that the Board of Education of District 15 adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Eric. Can I have your votes, please? Motion passes, and we are adjourned. Thank you.